Good evening, viewers. You're watching To The Point. I'm Preet Choudhary. The Rashtrapatni row in Parliament has caused a massive Smriti Irani versus Sonia Gandhi storm. Leading the charge in Parliament, Smriti Irani, in 24 hours, it happened yesterday, in 24 hours today, went and met President Murmu. Who she had with her was the MOS Women and Child Development Minister as well as the Minority Affairs Minister. Loaded messaging there. On the other hand, support came in for Sonia Gandhi as well from the likes of Jaya Bachchan. Here's how it all panned out.
Apologize to the nation. Maafi mango is desh se. Maafi mango Sonia Gandhi Adivasiyon se. Maafi mango aurton se.
Ma'am, will you ask Adhir to apologize?
He has already apologized.
Sparked by a sexist Rashtrapatni comment by Congress leader Adhir Ranjan Choudhury, the Parliament became a no-hold-barred arena between BJP Union Minister Smriti Irani and Congress Interim President Sonia Gandhi.
Maafi mango aur sharam karo.
Smriti Irani raised the issue of using derogatory language for the Rashtrapati, the President Droupadi Murmu. The Union Minister directly demanded an apology from Sonia Gandhi, to which Sonia Gandhi said, "Don't talk to me." The dramatic confrontation reached a crescendo on Thursday when, in midst of chants of Sonia Gandhi Maafi do, Miss Gandhi reportedly walked up to the Treasury benches asking why was she being dragged in the issue.
Sonia ji sanctioned the humiliation of a woman. The Congress party, who herself being a woman.
Later, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman accused Gandhi of using a threatening tone.
हाउस में महिला हमारे सांसद के पास आकर के आज जब श्रीमती सोनिया गांधी ने बात की, उस समय कोई और भी सांसद बगल में आकर के क्या है, क्या हो गया, क्या बात हो रही है, ऐसे पूछने में यू डोंट टॉक टू मी.
Lok Sabha witnessed tense moments and the House was adjourned briefly.
आज 12 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है.
The day after, leading the charge against Sonia Gandhi in Parliament over the Rashtrapatni remark, Smriti Irani made a courtesy visit to the President of India, Droupadi Murmu. Along with Irani was MOS for Women and Child Development Dr. Mahendra Mujpara and MOS for Minority Affairs John Barla. The messaging was clear. The President today had another high-profile visit by the Home Minister Amit Shah. This was outside Parliament. Inside, if Thursday rang with chants of Sonia Gandhi Maafi do, Friday was the Congress's turn to protest. Support for Sonia Gandhi came from other parties. Samajwadi Party Rajya Sabha MP Jaya Bachchan slammed Smriti for attacking Sonia Gandhi.
तो उसमें क्या गलती कर दी? हम सबसे बात करते हैं. ये कल से नया तमाशा शुरू हुआ है कि ट्रेजरी बेंच के लोग जो हैं वो भी चिल्ला रहे हैं, वो भी वो कर रहे हैं. तो आप में और अपोजिशन में क्या फर्क है? और एक एमपी ने तो प्लेकार्ड भी दिखाया, तो चेयर ने कहा कि नहीं शी इज एजिटेटिंग. तो वो एजिटेट करें तो ठीक है, हम एजिटेट करें तो ठीक नहीं है.
Meanwhile, the man who sparked this epic face-off spoke exclusively to India Today, saying it was a slip of tongue and that he is ready to apologize, but to the President, not the BJP.
It was nothing but a slip of tongue. I have already sought an appointment with President of India to express myself, and certainly when I will be meeting with her, the issue will be coming up, and instantly, and to that point I certainly express my regret.
You sanctioned the insult of every Indian citizen.
Smriti Irani versus the Gandhis is an old festering feud bloodied in the Battle of Amethi. And what happened in Parliament is yet another chapter, which escalated the Smriti versus Rahul grudge to Smriti Irani versus Sonia Gandhi. Bureau Report, India Today. Whereas for exactly a minute now, let's get away from the politics. The term Rashtrapatni, yes, it is downright sexist, especially in the connotation it has presumably been used. But let's be under no illusion that the term Rashtrapati wasn't sexist. The word was coined in 1947 with the assumption that a woman will or could not hold India's highest constitutional post. When Pratibha Patil became the first woman president in 2007, there was an intense discussion on the term Rashtrapati, with women activists alleging that the word Rashtrapati was gender biased and patriarchal. Incidentally, how to address a president was a point of discussion even in the Constituent Assembly of 1947. The Constituent Assembly member K.T. Shah had suggested that a woman president could be called Neta, and one suggestion was Karnadhar. On 23rd July 1947, another member of the Constituent Assembly, Gokul Bhai Bhatt, moved an amendment that the president be named, if a woman, as Rashtrapati, instead of that, Rashtraneta or Rashtra Karnadhar if she was a woman. On 24th July 1947, Jawaharlal Nehru took cognizance of the amendment. However, a committee was set up on this to file a report. That report was never filed and the term Rashtrapati stuck. Primarily the reason which is, viewers, that during the freedom movement, Congress presidents were addressed as Rashtrapati. And that was the tradition that Pandit Nehru wanted to forge forward. All right, we've taken that minute away from the politics. Let's get right back to it. Now, Adhir Ranjan Choudhury says it's much ado about nothing. It was a slip of tongue. It's happened with the Prime Minister as well. Why make a mountain of a molehill is what Adhir Ranjan Choudhury says. Meanwhile, the BJP is saying nothing doing with what Mr. Choudhury says. We want an apology from Miss Sonia Gandhi. I have with me Mr. Anurag Sharma, Lok Sabha MP, BJP. Joining him on this face-off is Dr. Ajoy Kumar, spokesperson, Congress, and former MP. Dr. Kumar, I'd like to begin with you. The reason which is because, you know, Mr. Choudhury is not the only one. You yourself stand accused of insulting the president where the BJP comes into question. The BJP's point, Dr. Kumar, in all of this is that it's not what Mr. Choudhury said. It is right from the beginning that the nomination of Ms. Murmu came about. The Congress insulted her repeatedly, and now she's president.
No, I think it's the most ridiculous allegation. In my case, you know, it was the BJP IT cell doing a video editing as usual, which is true to their nature. They will edit the videos. Because I said that she's a very decent person, I continue to hold that opinion. There's no debate on that. Whether the BJP is an evil philosophy, that's a different debate in which I meant to it. But as far as Adhir Ranjan Choudhury goes, the question again is Smriti Irani's reaction was to divert the attention from what's happening in Goa. If Mr. Modi, Prime Minister Modi can say Congress ki vidwa, Mr. Giriraj Singh said something to the effect of indicated towards a Jersey cow or some statement like that. The people who have insulted women, the maximum insult, there is a BJP MP, MLA leader right now who was a militant in Meghalaya who is running a brothel. So the question again is, the party which, Congress party, and I want to be with my colleagues very clear, the Congress party has so much of respect for the tribals. It was the only party which brought the 5th schedule amendment, the forest right, the reservation. Now you want to divert attention. So if you want to divert attention, it's okay, there's no issue at all. Second issue is my learned colleague. The BJP still says, and RSS says, Vanwasi. They must answer this. Vanwasi means people live in jungle. We have always said Adivasi. Across Vanwasi Kalyan Kendra. So if the Adivasis are called Vanwasi by the Bharatiya Janata Party, I come from Jharkhand, why can't they just say Adivasi? Why do they say Vanwasi? They wanted to make Jharkhand Vananchal, not Jharkhand. So my question again is, Mr. Adhir Ranjan Choudhury, it is definitely a slip of the tongue, but I'm very happy that the BJP finally agrees with Pandit Nehru. Pandit Nehru, finally they should take inspiration from Nehruji, because Nehruji said that, and they so please say that, look, we accept Pandit Nehru's statement. Adhir Ranjan Choudhury made a mistake, but it's obviously, you know, Preeti, tell me something, price rise, terrorism, all over the country, the kind of activities which are happening. And to divert attention, so many times people have, their language, their words have slipped, they have made a miscommunication, and they said, look, it was a slip of the tongue. But to attack Mrs. Gandhi. She has never ever in her life, and my esteemed colleague will accept, you will never see Mrs. Gandhi ever saying something unparliamentary.
Right.
She has never spoken a single word which is personal. She has spent all her life, lost her husband, lost her mother-in-law, and then you start attacking such a senior person? Because Miss Smriti Irani is very worried about some silly souls who are living in Goa. That's quite crazy, right? I mean, in terms of, my view is very simple. You want to divert attention, you want to make a monster of the molehill, the people are saying, we will fight it back.
Okay.
And
I want to bring
of the life.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I want to bring your co-panelist into this conversation, Mr. Anurag Sharma. He's a Lok Sabha MP himself. I'm sure whatever went down happened in front of his eyes. Mr. Sharma, the question is plausible. Adhir Ranjan Choudhury says it's a slip of tongue. Hindi is not my mother tongue, it's Bangla. Our own Prime Minister has made so many mistakes. We haven't gone after him. A, why go after me? And more so, why go after Miss Gandhi?
If I get uninterrupted time, I'd be very grateful for that. But thank you so much for having me on the show. Couple of points. Firstly, Mr. Adhir Ranjan Choudhury ji did not make this mistake as a slip of the tongue. It is a deliberate mistake. He said Rashtrapatni as the word first. Please see the original audio and see the channel which taped it. Right? And after that, after being reminded of the word Rashtrapatni, which he used, he should have corrected himself. He did not. And he didn't use it once, he used it twice. And just before, in the same conversation, he used the word Rashtrapati. So it definitely wasn't a slip of the tongue. And he's known to be insulting. And this is not the first incident. You've seen it repeatedly in 2019, you've seen it repeatedly in 2020, you've seen it repeatedly in 2021 also. He called Mrs. Sitharaman, if you remember the speech, Nirbal. If you remember on Kashmir, he turned around and said, it's an international issue, it's not a bilateral issue. So he has been constantly making this. He's even compared the Ganga to a Nali. That's also one of his speeches. He's apologized to that. So I'm not going to rake up most of these issues, but he constantly does it. And who has he been sanctioned by to do this? This is an issue Congress also always had, and the Congress president probably has this and has encouraged him to constantly go after and do this. It's a very easy way to claim it's not my mother tongue. If it's not your mother tongue, how come you are using the word Rashtrapati? Secondly, why is he used constantly for this kind of purpose if you've appointed him as a leader of the Congress party in the Lok Sabha? If he's done this before, remove him, get somebody else to come and say. So if Mrs. Gandhi is allowing these things to constantly happen, we are within our rights to go and say this. And now coming back to that similar incident. One, yes, I agree, Mrs. Gandhi probably has never used unparliamentary language. I have rarely ever heard her speak in the parliament in the first place. So anyway, let's get to that, people. You walked up to the treasury benches after the Lok Sabha had been adjourned. Normally, if we do have to discuss anything, and my esteemed colleague who's been a member of parliament, a panelist here, would agree that we normally do tend to meet in the central hall, and if you had an issue to be raised, you walked up to the seat which is allotted to Mrs. Smriti Irani. So you walked up to that seat. What was the point? There was really no need for you to walk up to that particular seat and try and talk to Rama Devi. Rama Devi ji did not give that speech. The Honorable Minister did. And the Honorable Minister very kindly turned around and said, Madam, if you have anything, ask me. So instead of being so aggressive, you could have asked Smriti Irani, or you could have gone to Smriti Irani's office. She has an office there. You could have met her in the central hall. Smriti Irani sits in the central hall. A lot of times we all meet her constantly there. So you could have gone and done this. So why is Adhir Ranjan ji used constantly by the Congress to do these? He has insulted the Prime Minister. He's done it with Amit Shah. He's done it with the Honorable Governor, the then Governor of Kashmir. So this has been a constant phase with him. I mean, every time he picks up, we actually all listen very carefully because we know he's going to do something else. He is used as a loose cannon by the Congress. And I don't think so they like the fact that Mrs. Droupadi Murmu is the Honorable President of India. And she's not only the Honorable President, the highest constitutional post in this country, she's also our Commander-in-Chief. The least we should do is show respect to the Commander-in-Chief.
You know, Mr. Sharma, you've raised some pertinent points, and I want to bring in Dr. Kumar, but I'd ask you, a counter question to what you said. You said, Ms. Irani has an office in Parliament. It could have happened the other way as well, because the statement wasn't made by Ms. Gandhi, it was made by Adhir Ranjan Choudhury. If Ms. Irani had an issue that Ms. Gandhi was behind it, it could have been, instead of mounting an attack, a verbal assault in Parliament, she could have done the same, speak to Ms. Gandhi on the sidelines.
We brought it up in Parliament so the nation would know what was being done by the Congress. So the apology to be given, Adhir Ranjan Choudhury could have done it right there and then. He doesn't need to apologize to the BJP. He could have apologized to the President of India in Parliament and said, look, I made this mistake. Let's get it over with. Let the Parliament function. And we've gone back to the functioning of the Parliament.
Okay. I want to bring in now, it's a question that you raised. I want to bring in Dr. Kumar. Dr. Kumar, the fact is, once is hapstance, twice is coincidence, third time is enemy action. And usually, by the track record, one would assume that Mr. Adhir Ranjan Choudhury is enemy action, because he's done this repeatedly. He's a repeated offender. You know that as well. So would you blame the BJP for thinking that Ms. Gandhi has always turned, away when he says what he does and really not address it?
So let's put the same standards which my esteemed colleague is putting. Congress ki Vidwa, Prime Minister, has he apologized? Jersey cow, has Giriraj Singh apologized? The question again is, look at the shamelessness of the Bharatiya Janata Party. The Prime Minister says it in a rally. Okay, Giriraj Singh says stuff. I mean, the kind of things they do, the language they use, and they are claiming insult to women. So my question again, and they are attacking another lady, by the way. So it's like the theatre of the absurd. First of all, Adhir Ranjan Choudhury, the fact of life is that you and me will keep saying it. His mother tongue is not Hindi. He may have spoken in, and suppose he's made this mistake, and let's give him at BJP.
But Dr. Kumar, he's done it so many, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but he's done it so many times. If his mother tongue is not Hindi, then speak in Bengali.
No, the problem is when he speaks in Bengali, will you people and all allow? My question again is, we will attack him for speaking in Bengali. We will attack him for speaking in English. Any South Indian or people from different parts of India who make an attempt, people will laugh. The question is not that. If Adhir Ranjan Choudhury and Mrs. Gandhi have to apologize, first Mr. Modi has to apologize for Congress ki Vidwa statement. Who says this? Who makes statement in the in India? Jersey cow, is that what you say? And Mr. Rajya will, I'll tell you, I mean, which low level they want to go? So, Adhir Ranjan Choudhury is Smriti Irani is outraged. Why are you should be outraged about the restaurant, with the kind of food you're serving there in those restaurants and the licenses and all. That's a legal issue, we'll tackle with it. But my question is, if Mr. Anurag is very upset, my esteemed colleague is upset, please be upset on what he told the Prime Minister told Mrs. Gandhi. Where are your barometers? If you're upset, we accept and we have apologized to the President and a formal written apology. Why doesn't the Prime Minister apologize? No, Prime Minister, and why is Giriraj Singh not sacked? And Mr. Amit Shah and Mr. Modi is responsible because Giriraj Singh can make any statement. So, by that logic, sir, and look at their statements. Repeatedly, they have been attacking Congress people. Repeatedly, they make these below-the-belt statements, and suddenly they are outraged. It's so funny. I mean, it's like the theatre of the absurd.
Okay.
Honestly speaking, sir, it's absolutely a theatre of the absurd.
Okay, Doctor. Okay, Mr. Sharma, there's meat in that because it's none the richer. Let's go back in the history of unsavory statements. If there's Jersey cow, no sir, I'll come to you. If there's Jersey cow, if there is Congress ki Vidwa, there's 50 crore ki girlfriend, no apologies were ever made.
Okay, now let's get back to that. Okay, fair enough what he's saying. Now those are political statements made in a political rally. This is against the President of India. It's a constitutional post. Sorry, the Congress President is not the President of India.
Okay.
Congress tends to treat them as such. I'm sorry, you can't. It's the President of India, for heaven's sake. It's the highest constitutional post we have in this country, sir. So please, let's just keep it to the President of India. Why we were outraged is because you insulted the President of India. We did not say you insulted Droupadi Murmu as a person, you insulted the President of India. So please, let's be
one second.
One second, sir, I'm coming. Let's not talk over each other. Mr. Sharma, sir, I'll come back to you, I promise you. Mr. Sharma, I want to ask you a question, sir.
Sorry, go ahead.
Dr. Roy, Dr. Kumar, I'll come to you. Mr. Sharma, you make a statement, and I think it's a very plausible statement where you say it's the highest constitutional post in the country. But a rejoinder to that would also be, it is now a constitutional post of the country. Ms. Murmu occupies that post. Then to bring up her identity of her being a tribal, of her being a woman, that's also politicizing it, sir, isn't it?
We were using the term when she was fighting the election. After
no, sir. The speech by Ms. Irani on the floor of the Parliament was that she's a woman, that she's a tribal.
Because the Congress and the other opposition leaders, especially their candidate, constantly referred to Mrs. Murmu. When she was fighting the election, you know very well what Mr. Yashwant Sinha said during his speeches.
Okay, sir, I agree with what you're saying. In the election, yes. But this statement was made yesterday by Ms. Irani on the floor of the House, where she invoked Ms. Murmu being a woman and being a tribal. Because that is also then not allowed if it's a constitutional post. But having said that, you've made a point. I want to bring in Dr. Kumar back with your permission. Dr. Kumar, you wanted to make a point. Go ahead.
So Pandit Nehru was the Prime Minister of India. I don't know what do they define that as a constitutional post? Let's imagine for a minute that they won't like to define it. They continue to insult Pandit Nehru, left, right and center from, and he is dead. I mean, he's not even alive. And that shamelessness is of no issue to the Bharatiya Janata Party. Oh, by the way, it's politics. He was the Prime Minister of India. He's dead. They will insult him day in and day out from their WhatsApp message trying to make him into a minority. That's a famous strategy which they continue to do. So I am amazed with their outrage. Okay. I'm amazed with their manufactured outrage, because if you make a slip of the tongue, my Anuragji makes a slip of the tongue, I will say that, listen, and we all know it's a slip of the tongue. We 100% know it. But now we have to divert attention from what is happening with Ms. Irani, what is happening with the price rise, what is happening. And I want to ask Anuragji only one question. Pandit Nehru, did he hold a post which was constitutional?
Okay, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to quickly go to him. Okay, Mr. Sharma, please answer that question and I'll close the bulletin.
Okay. I'll answer both the questions. One, Smriti Irani has just got it from the High Court. Those tweets have to be taken down. You unnecessarily went after an 18-year-old child. Unfair, unwarranted for, and the High Court has made you take those tweets down. Secondly, I have never said when Mr. Adhir Ranjan Choudhury ji went on the floor of the House and used words against Amit Shah ji and used words against the Honorable Prime Minister on the floor of the House, sir. Secondly, it's never a slip of the tongue. You use the word, please hear his speech very, very carefully. You use the word Rashtrapatni. And right after that, right after the price is Rashtrapatni, and not once, the anchor tried to correct him, he said it again a second time. So please don't call it slip of the tongue. The man is a loose cannon assassin.
Okay, with the permission of both you gentlemen, may I please bow out of this debate? I appreciate you joining us. And I would reckon for somebody who's been following women's rights, I want to add this. Rashtrapatni is a sexist word in the connotation that it is being allegedly used, yes. But let's be under no illusion that Rashtrapati was not sexist when that word was coined in 1947.